Hello! So, if you didn't know, on this channel, we love Doctor Who. We talk about Doctor Who quite often. Look, it's a Dalek made out of wool. So, for this new series of Doctor Who, we're going to be doing reviews every week, because guess what? That means weekly uploads, plus, extra videos for 6 weeks. And I bet you lot are buzzing, absolutely buzzing. So, let's get right into it. Here's my review of episode 1, the Halloween something or other. You know it's going to be top quality. So, let's start with some positives. I was really worried because the energy of Graham in series 11 and 12 has been one of the best things about the Jodie Whittaker era. Like, the TARDIS group I found more likeable than most have, but Graham especially added such a brilliant flavour to Doctor Who I didn't actually quite know I needed. So obviously I was a little bit worried going into this episode where we've lost Graham for the first time in the Jodie Whittaker era. And while no, Dan isn't quite a replication of that energy, I still actually really enjoyed his performance. There's that fun about him, and I can see him being a fun character on this adventure. We'll get on some of the comedic elements which I wasn't quite as fond of, but any bits that I found really funny usually came from Dan. Talking more about the episode itself, I think the setup here is actually quite cool. It ups the stakes quite a bit, just a big massive space cloud that's eating up things. That's quite a big plot line. Yeah, I think that's a really cool plot line that, is well set up here. It's really odd because this episode felt like it could be an episode of the classic series because obviously, with the more serialised structure, a little bit of a slower pace, it's the most, weirdly, the most classic modern Who has felt, just with the style of story they're telling. It also felt quite cinematic. I mean, for a BBC TV budget, the special effects, it's fantastic stuff. And yeah, I did really enjoy how big budget this managed to feel. It was impressive. However, this wasn't a perfect episode, and I'm not sure that I'm massively fond of it. Yes, it felt like an episode of the classic series in a little bit more of, the slower pace and, just the building into, like a bigger story. That made this episode feel very set-up-y. There wasn't much happening. Clearly, a bigger story going on here, but you've just got a lot of elements that, just seem thrown in. It's almost weird how this episode can feel slow-paced, yet really crowded. Because, we seem to have all of these different stories. You've got the dog monster, you've got the random guy breaking out a prison, you've got Sontarans, you've got Weeping Angels, you've got all these moving elements, but obviously in an episode like this, which is very set-up-y, they don't come together very well. So this episode as a whole isn't that enjoyable because you're getting lots of jigsaw pieces, none of which are connecting really. So this has been one of my problems with the Jodie Whittaker era, or Chris Chibnall's writing, but it's still present here. It's about the humour. A lot of the times, tension is very much undercut by not particularly funny humour. A lot of times, jokes are there to either extend scenes, and they feel very out of place at points, and it's happened throughout the rest of the Jodie Whittaker era. It's not specific to this, but it's still present here, and it distracts me every time there's just some joke that just doesn't land and just feels distracting. Don't get me wrong, Doctor Who is 100% allowed to be funny, and I think it should, but Chris Chibnall is not a comedic writer, and this episode is another standing against that. But overall, I don't want to be too harsh. I think this was a fun episode, and it's a setup episode. You've got to understand that. To be fair, my opinion of this episode will change over time depending on how well they follow it up. For example, in this episode, the Sontarans are literally thrown in. Next week, at least we'll get them front and centre, so that bit will make sense on a second viewing. And presumably the Weeping Angels and the random blue people, they'll come into it at some point. We'll work out what that all means, and hopefully this is building on something, and therefore this episode will become better in the future. Now boys, you know what you must do, because there's going to be a review of each episode every week, so yous have got to subscribe for more Doctor Who content. Also, I will be more on it with reviews. Obviously yesterday it was Halloween, so I was gonna do my Halloween thing, but from next week, reviews will be up on the day of the episode, unless I'm really unorganised, and then they won't. Anyway, lads, I'll see you soon. Thank you very much.
This is Willany, and if you're not already subscribed to The Nerdy Brit, right, you should be, right? If you're not, you're a loser too.